So this is the polls this Thursday afternoon. We've just on 3 days to the presidential and parliamentary elections, and everything is on the table. Now, Ghana sits on billions in mineral wealth, often considered a blessing from God. Yet efforts to extract these resources like gold have led to more hardship than prosperity. Yesterday, the MPP presidential candidate, Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia, stirred excitement among miners in the Ashanti Range, precisely Obuasi, with his promise to make them millionaires through mining. But quickly added, however, that his approach includes a plan for responsible and sustainable mining. Listen.
Yeah, the common use of facilities, any gold catcher machines, bremo. The so miners, muhias, mudebeto ifidie. Enti ye minerals development bank. Miners said mubenya loans, etimiato equipment for mining. So minerals develop.
We will introduce the common user facility and gold catcher machines to support miners. We will also establish Minerals Development Bank, just like their Great Development Bank, to support miners. I am going to make you millionaires while you mine responsibly.
I'm going to make you millionaires. Millionaires. I'm going to make you millionaires. I'm going to make you millionaires. You will mine responsibly, not in the water bodies. We will make you millionaires. You will become small-scale miners, you will become medium-scale miners, and you will become large-scale miners.
Well, Dr. Bawumia isn't alone in advocating sustainable mining ahead of the December elections. The NDC's John Dramani Mahama and other candidates have also pledged similar commitments, and for obvious reasons.
We cannot allow illegal mining to continue unchecked. We must chart a new vision for our country's mining industry that prioritizes sustainable development and responsible mining practices. We cannot afford to lose these precious natural resources through the greed of a few individuals. To address these challenges, we must work together, including all of you, to develop and implement policies that prioritize sustainable mining practices and hold those who engage in illegal mining accountable. This will require a multifaceted approach that includes stricter enforcement of mining laws, increased investment in responsible mining technologies, and enhanced efforts to educate and empower small-scale miners to operate sustainably. This means us taking bold steps to rehabilitate and restore areas affected by illegal mining and investing in renewable energy sources to reduce our reliance on traditional mining practices. As a leader of the National Democratic Congress, I'm deeply committed to working with all stakeholders when we come into government to chart a new vision for our country's mining industry.
So in areas like Tarkwa in the western region, Atiwa in the eastern region, and of course Obuasi in the Ashanti region, mining environmental toll has reached a crisis point. Rivers, once used for drinking, now run yellow. Forests face destruction, and young people are forced to choose between short-term gains and a sustainable future. But the question remains, can Ghana truly balance minerals extraction and environmental preservation? We'll put together this to illustrate the point. So the MPP and the NDC, they've all made promises, and they've committed to what they will do to ensure sustainable mining in the country. And according to Dr. Bawumia, who is bidding to lead the country on the ticket of the MPP, his plan is to ensure the application, processing, and line system of small-scale mining ends at the Minerals Commission. And we'll get to know more. He wants to scale up the use of mercury-free gold catcher machine technology for profitable and as well as sustainable small-scale mining. This is part of the NPP's approach to sustainable mining, that is, if elected, to continue in 2025. Also aggregate and utilize reclamation fund to implement land reclamation programs. For the NDC, they want to wage a war against the use of cocoa farms for illegal mining or galamsey activities, and also want to reclaim degraded cocoa lands, such that such lands can go back to be used as cocoa farms. And amongst others, they want to ensure that mining operations are not conducted in unapproved areas, such as water bodies, and that the concession holders rehabilitate impacted areas. And also want to facilitate equipment financing and mining input, research, standardization, gold recovery, optimization, and post-mining land reclamation services. This is part of the NDC long-term plan to deal with the mining sector especially. And of course, you've also heard similar pronouncement from the likes of Alan Kwadwo Kyerematen, Hassan Ayariga, and all those who are contesting in the December election. We've got two experts who help us tackle this today. Dr. Charles Gyamfi Ofori is policy lead, climate change and energy transition. Doctor, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Great. And of course, Nana Amoasi, the fifth executive director of the Institute for Energy Security, IES. These are the watchdogs who have been monitoring our mining sector, tracking climate change impact, and holding successive governments accountable. We'll be examining the political promises against reality. We'll also be looking at the real cost of mining in our forest reserve, the truth about community benefits from mining, the connection between our mining practices and climate change, of course, the possibility of truly sustaining the mining practice as we have it in this country. So let's start on this very important discussion. Let's start with Dr. Charles Gyamfi Ofori. Dr. Ofori, welcome.
Thank you very much, also.
So first, let's talk about, the discussion about illegal mining, for example, has been ongoing. First of all, let me find out, in terms of government's commitment in the past, and even what they are promising to do now, we really think that they've been more committed to ending illegal mining before we come talk about the other matters?
I think it's a bigger conversation that we really need to have as far as illegal mining is concerned. And it's really an issue around our ability to enforce the laws that we have, because I mean, you can take a look into our Minerals and Mining Acts and other regulations within the mining sector, and you see that there are a lot of provisions that have been made to curtail the incidence of illegal mining. It goes beyond just mining without a license. Even if you have a license, you need to follow the laid down rules and practices of mining, and all of these things are provided and enshrined in our various laws and regulations in the mining sector. Okay. I think that it's really an issue of how we are able to enforce some of these regulations to make sure that those who mine are not mining in reserves. For instance, they are not mining in water bodies. And then also they are undertaking the needed reclamation purposes or reclamation activities that they need to undertake. So the issue of reclamation shouldn't have even been, a bigger manifesto promise in my estimation, because it is a legal provision. It is something that you, as a mineral rights holder, needs to have. And when you are done with your exploration and your production, you need to leave the space in a way as you came to meet it. Right. So that shouldn't be like a bigger promise that a political party or wants to now do.
Perhaps it's because
you need to enforce it.
Perhaps it's because the environment is so degraded that it becomes a matter of a promise.
Exactly.
And to fix it.
Exactly. That is the sad reality we are facing now. And I think that, I mean, the issue of illegal mining has been there, from successive governments past, and the will to really deal with it had not really been there.
I'll come back to ask you about how did we get here, but let me allow Nana Amoasi his preliminary comments on the matter. We don't have him yet. We'll bring him on when we have him. Then we can have him speak to us on what he makes of the issue that we are discussing this afternoon. But Dr. Ofori, so how did we get here? I mean, I've been reading a lot about illegal mining. Clearly, it started way before even Ghana gained independence. So it's been with us from even before the creation of the Republic. But how did we get to where we are now that it is so topical that it is probably the reason why somebody may even lose the upcoming elections?
I think there are a lot of factors. First of all, we can look at the influx of at one point, we were talking about Chinese invading our small-scale mining space. And suddenly the conversation shifted even beyond the Chinese invading it to our own, people now invading the space. Realizing how lucrative the enterprise has become, people comparing a value of gold to other, like say to cocoa or to any other agricultural produce, and they saw a lot of value in engaging in illegal mining or mining without a license, or even undertaking mining without the needed, structural or environmental safeguards. So the gains, the potential gains that they are supposed to get out of it is really what they are seeing, and they want to really do whatever they want to do. We visited a community some years ago,
okay, and
we interacted with some young people, and they told us that in this community, you either become a teacher or a nurse if you go to school. And when they see the life of and the gains, the livelihood of some of these professions, and they see the life that a galamsey operator is living, they seem to look at the fact that, okay, this person gets a lot of economic benefits from it. So that's incentive to do it, irrespective of the dangers, even with the environment, the dangers with themselves, even going under the pit, has been shrouded with the kind of money that they feel or they intend to.
So
that is one point.
So lack of job opportunities may not necessarily be the main issue.
I think it's a bigger, there's that bigger incentive for people to now go into it. And it's now developed into we even hearing of a lot of, political influences and political actions, making illegal miners feel so protected that, there is no way, it becomes very difficult for some of the laws that we have to be enforced. And
because clearly some of the politicians are themselves involved and owning mining concessions as well.
News around holding mining concessions. And it's not just a matter of holding mining concessions. You see, holding a mining concession will not be against the law, but the practice of the mining itself, is it a legal approach that you are taking? Are you doing the necessary? Are you giving the necessary safeguards as prescribed by the law, as prescribed by the Minerals and Mining Act and their attendant regulations? All of these things dovetail into the kind of things that we are seeing, and I think it began to generate a lot of attention because we now see the evidence of what is happening on our water bodies. We see the devastation it is causing, and I think one bigger thing was about the press release that the Ghana Water Company made, giving us the kind of reality check that we needed to see, that if we do not tackle the issue, it is really going to be a canker for us. And imagine Ghana importing, our water, a source of water to drink, and all the things that comes with it, the attendant environmental impacts, not just for those who are living in the mining communities alone, but also for even people who live, kilometers and hundreds of miles away because of how interconnected our water bodies are. That reality is quite shocking, and we needed to have that kind of organized, approach to push the actors to deal with the kind of menace that we are facing. All right.
Nana Mwesi joins us in the studio. He's he's the Executive Director for the Institute of Energy Security. Nana, you're welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Always a pleasure to have you on the show. And I mean, it is not surprising that mining and how to mine responsibly has become one of the issues that is driving this December 7th presidential elections. And I was just saying that somebody may lose the election because of perhaps the way the comments and how they've conducted themselves in terms of addressing this issue of illegal mining. Before we get into the issues, your preliminary comment on why has this become so a major campaign tool as we head towards the elections?
Well, I think you chose the words carefully. Mining, responsible mining. Yes, of course, whatever is on the ground, it's by its own definition as a mineral, it's a great resource to the country and to the citizens. And for that matter, they will want to tap into that mineral. But how responsible have we been? And unfortunately, Galamsey is not something that came to us a few years ago.
No, in fact, way before Ghana was formed.
Exactly. But then we've not had this sort of, or extent of devastation in our water bodies and in our grounds. And so if somebody has to suffer for that, then it means that the person has not been responsible in checking the miners, checking the citizens who want to make gains from the mineral. I'm sure we'll keep on mining as a country. And so there is no contest and there is no issue about whether we'll mine or we won't mine. We'll still mine. But how responsible would we be? And how responsible has the government been over the years? What have been their actions and inactions? What have been their own comments? Even when they are mining in forest reserve, and irresponsibly, you get people go to their defense that they are doing right. And so if somebody have to suffer for some of these things, so be it.
Let's focus on the real cost of mining in our forest reserves. I mean, when organized labor threatened that nationwide strike, among the demands was that government should take steps to revoke the LI that allows mining in forest reserves. The president took action. He directed the Minerals Commission not to grant any more licenses for people to mine in the forest reserve. And when Parliament came back, the process for the LI to be revoked started. But for now, because of the issues in Parliament, it hasn't taken any more step beyond the fact that there is some kind of commitment from the side of government to have it revoked. Why would a state or a country grant, first of all, license for people to mine in forest reserve, knowing very well the implications it will have for our future? Let me start with Dr. Forey.
I think it's quite incredible to hear or to even see that in the first place, where, from a very diversity perspective, we know how important some of these reserves are to us, and I think the real question was whether we had even were done with mining in other parts of the country that were not, labeled as forest reserves or protected zones. And it was really quite surprising that the executive as well as Parliament could even think or to say that let us allow this to even run through us and then get the approval in the first.
In fact, there was no opposition to it when the LI started traveling the 21 days maturation period, and then it became a law subsequently.
And until we began to blow the whistle and make a lot of statements concerning this issue, it would have seemed that it was okay for us to do so. And surprisingly, here we were going to COP16 in Cali to go and do a biodiversity conference, whereas we are here doing the same law that allows us to mine, to hit the kind of biodiversity that we are going out there to go and hold conferences over. So that was quite intriguing and surprising on both, executive and then the legislative.
But for you, what really is the real cost of mining in forest reserves?
I think those are protected areas that we need to continue to protect as far as our biodiversity is concerned. And we need to make sure when the last gold is taken away and the last fish is eaten and the last tree is cut, we realize that we cannot eat money. right? That balanced approach to let us know which areas are supposed to be mined and which areas are not supposed to be mined is very important for us to take note as a country. And it's not everywhere where we believe that the land is bare, the land is available, that we need to mine. There are certain areas that we really need to protect to ensure that we do not, harm the kind of biodiversity, the kind of environment that we want to actually. Those things come together to protect our own environment, and those are the safeguards that we needed to have. And I think the most basic of all forms of prevention was really to ensure that those areas that have been marked as forest zones, protected areas, are not going to be touched when it comes to mining.
But Nana Mwesi, I mean, look at gold and the kind of remnant gold can bring us. We've been running around taking loans, sometimes $5 million, 10 million. The IMF has given us 3 billion. And look at the conditions attached to it. Imagine government has, or the state has access to all our gold resources and then mining it, and all the money coming to the state coffers. I'm sure that I would have paid all our debt, and will become so much sustaining. What that tells me, for example, is that if we are able to exploit the mineral resources in a way that is sustainable, and then we adopt a responsible mining, the benefits will be bigger. We can also leave the gold in the forest, knowing very well the impact that will have on our economy. So how do we go around this?
Well, I worked as a miner between 1996 and the year 2000 in Obuasi. Obuasi have mined gold for centuries, for years. And ask me, what is the state of Obuasi today? What is the state of Tarkwa today? And so mining in itself is not generating that much revenue, and it's not bringing that development that we all envisage. If you want to really gauge it, look at all the locations or the locality that they mine gold. It ends up being deplorable. They end up being at the disadvantage end and poorer at the end of mining, because I'm sure we've not laid the right structures and strategies to go into this. Most of the mining done on large scale, for instance, are done by foreigners.
Of course.
And so we just take peanuts at the end of the day. How we put ourselves together to have a national mining company and go into that domain responsibly and mine. Then you ask into forest reserve. My brother laid it right when he said, we have not exhausted what we have in unprotected areas. Why do we go to protected forests? And by its own name and definition, forest reserve means that at a reserve for a purpose and to hold biodiversity. Some of our clean waters passes through this reserve, are filtered and comes to join some major streams, which we end up consuming by drinking. And so when you mine in these areas, you are polluting it from its very source. So the tail end is what we are seeing currently at Wager, right. The result we're seeing. And so it disturbs the water bodies. Some species are also kept safely there around water and clean water. If we disturb it, we disturb our own course. The next is that the forest reserve holds many trees. And if we understand what tree does, they consume or they absorb the carbons we emit. So they are carbon sinks. When we cut them down and burn them, that's why when you burn a tree, you see smoke.
Right.
Because it's holding all that. If you're cutting it down, then it means at the end of the day, you are generating so much carbon and you don't have a place to hold it. It go up into the skies, and what do we see? Global warming, climate change, and its resultant effect that we see. And so for us, and particularly as a person, Nana, you don't go into such areas at all. We hold them as sacred. So
what, we should just leave it as it is, when we can exploit it.
Have you exhausted the other places? You have not exhausted it, and you have not shown that you can mine responsibly. Why do you come to a forest reserve?
Dr. Foy, you don't see any way around this?
I think, it's a bigger issue around how we even manage the gains that we are getting from the mining. If we have some revenue management frameworks. Nana spoke about how even the local communities are not really benefiting.
We'll come to that. We'll come to that shortly.
Yeah, so I think that it is a bigger conversation on the scope of mining that we are having, where we are venturing into, which areas needs to be delinked from the activities of mining, and then how we also manage the gains that we are getting from mining, and then how we are enforcing the miners to ensure that how they came to miss the land, they leave it in that same way. So it's a bigger conversation on that. And once we're able to, put all of that and tie all of this in, even the consensus as to whether we should, or the argument as to whether we should enter protected zones would not even be,
But a key question on this for you, Dr. Ofori and then Nana. I mean, Nana, you are into the oil sector as well. We do understand that even for country Ghana and our oil production is dwindling, it's going down. We are not developing more wells. And even the companies that show an interest to invest in our oil sector, some of them are packed out and they've left. The danger for me is that in some few years to come, if we don't develop more wells, we are likely to run out. Gold has been with us for about 200, 300, 400 years. Isn't it the case that perhaps there should be a nationalistic approach to mining to gain the maximum benefit that exists there?
Exactly the point I made initially, that we've not made that conscious effort to nationalize some of these minerals for our own sake. And we always have to rely on foreign entities to come and mine our gold, mine our oil, and our own national stake is just what we take as participatory interest and all that, even in the oil industry. Up till now, the GNPC have not been able to become that flagship company or gain that operator status to hold a stake or probably a well and generate its own production. Then aside that, gain some other taxes for government and all that. We've not been able to do that. Same with gold. So probably going forward, we should begin to look at policies that will guard against unnecessary intrusion by foreign
Because
entities.
I remember when Newmont wanted to sell the Achim mines, and then the only comments we heard from governments, and in this case through the Minerals Commission, was that government was really interested in Newmont having a local component in the sale, such that Ghanaians may play some limited role in the mining sector. Then Newmont sold the mines to a Chinese company at $1 billion. Is it the case that companies like SNITS, even the Minerals Fund, couldn't have put together a consortium to buy it?
Yeah, it's possible. We've never taken advantage of our own local content policy. We are just at the fringes of it. It is just what we want to. You are the major coming into the country, and you have to have a local partner. And how much does the local partner get? 3%, 5% stake in that. It doesn't make it really much of a local content as an approach. So we must have a policy, a strategy, a framework that ensures that Ghanaians are also in the activity and are playing key roles, and they could rather go and look for partners who have minority stake. To give it to a Chinese, let's look at even this lithium that we're seeing. We have a mineral investment fund.
Right.
We are willing to take part of that money and invest it into the business of Atlantic Lithium. Why can't we build our own capacity? What does it take to mine? We have Ghanaians who are holding machineries for foreign entities to rent and mine. What's so much different? My boss, Sir Jonah, I work under him at AGC, I think around 1998, as my shift boss. Look, there is that experience Ghanaians have. We also have the machinery and all that it takes to go into mining. But I'm sure when I cut a deal for you my brother, black like me. I don't know why we can't trust ourselves and we can't feel comfortable around our own people, but we feel comfortable giving this to the Chinese, who will call our friend, than ourselves. So we must have a deliberate approach going forward.
But Dr. Fori, I mean, looking at the state of Obuasi today and popular mining towns like Tarkwa, if you look at the state of these two towns, is it enough to conclude that indeed mining hasn't benefited the country as it should be? If you want to cite example like Johannesburg.
I think we need to perhaps now begin to unpack those conversations. I, for one, do not have much of a problem when you are allowing foreigners to come in to undertake mining activities, whilst you also build the capacity of your own to undertake those activities. The key word is proper regulation of the activities for both locals and then foreigners. But back to your question, it's really about how we now distribute the revenues to ensure that those revenues meet the kind of needs that our people would want. We've seen from the fiscal data that mining revenues actually form just around 10 to 12% of our domestic revenues, and that is quite huge considering the kind of economy that we have. But the bigger question now is how much of that revenue goes into those local communities, given the kind of fiscal regime that we have. If you take our revenue structure, the amount that goes to support those mining areas is just the 20% of the royalties that is shared among the mining districts that goes through the Minerals Development Fund to be distributed to those mining districts and then those mining catchment areas. For some of these districts, as you mentioned, like Tarkwa, like Prestia, like Kenyasi and those other districts, you realize that those funds are really, really important sources of revenues that they use for their development. And when they come, it's because also this money seems to come to replace other sources of revenues. When those revenues are not coming in, then it means that they are left with only those monies, and some few monies that come through the DACF and then other IGFs to actually augment the development process that they have. Now, a challenge that they are facing is another new law that seems to cap the MDF portion that should even go to the districts. So, in 2017, we had the Earmarked Funds Capping and then Realignment Act that provided the Minister of Finance the discretion to actually cap, some of these statutory funds that are so that they can use the excess to do other things. When you track the performance of the Mineral Development Fund, which will be 20% of our mineral royalties, you realize that over time, about 10 to 12% is what goes, to the fund to be distributed to the community. So, if you have a district whose population size is huge, whose land mass is huge, and relies solely a lot, on the MDF funds, because your DACF is capped at source, by the time it gets to the district, it's delayed and all.
In fact, the head will even buy everything you need for you.
Then
whether you want it or not, the money will be deducted.
There is so much pressure on that fund to be used for the kind of development that you intend to have. So those challenges is what we see at the district, at the district level. So the kind of development that you want to see when you go to, say, Tarkwa, and you hear the volume of gold that is coming
of course,
there,
every year.
and you want to see the kind of development that is, you do not see it.
Because the companies will tell you that they pay taxes to government. They are also in business to make profits.
Exactly. Yeah.
They owe, within the period that they are supposed to work, dictated by the alliances, they've invested. They need to recoup their investment. Yeah. They pay taxes to government. Government decided to now spread the tax across the country for development, because the fact that the tax is coming from Obuasi doesn't mean that all the money should go back to Obuasi for development.
Exactly.
So the mining companies cannot be blamed 100% for the state of affairs.
Yes. So the monies are distributed, and then some are supposed to go to the district because of the processes that they go through, because they also incur the benefits or the impacts of the activity, but where the monies are not enough, where they are capped at source, then it would not be enough to meet. And you see, another thing is even the inability to track some of these monies.
Some goes into the building of policies and stuff.
To ask them, okay, how much did you expect to get? And there is no idea of how much they even expected to get. The kind of thinking around how, when the money goes into the pot, how do we notice that Obuasi gets this, Takwa gets this, Priscilla gets that, right? So that they should be able to track those, amounts of money so that they can get what is due them, maybe as a basis of their production or any other, level. It is quite difficult.
But in other words, how different is the Ghanaian situation from places like South Africa? That is, there's this huge gap in terms of development for the communities hosting the mining companies.
Probably we have to go and understudy that. It could be a whole thesis or research that somebody might want to understand why should it be so. But I think that for our end here, we don't even, the local community itself doesn't understand the business that is surrounding them. All that they get is being employed and they being able to sell, petty trading to the workers. They think that's all the business. But then if they understand what an ounce of gold is, how much is being sold on the world market, what the production levels are on monthly basis to the end of the year, they also be informed, be in an informed position to tell how much the company is generating by way of revenue. Forget about their costs and all that, but at least it gives them a fair idea how much is being paid to government by way of royalties and taxes and all that, and what by design and by legislature, how much they stand to get from the money that come to government. How much are they supposed to get? The district assembly or the community's own stake in that. Very important. But the communities largely are uninformed. And so we believe that that's where some of us have to do more advocacy so that we let the people community understand. Sometimes they even struggle as a company to win the community on their side, because the community seems to be in a position which means that, or which shows that we have been blinded from our own resources. We don't know how much they are taking away and how much comes to us. So education here is very, very important. And of course, advocacy will lead to that education. Then tracking, transparency, tracking of all those resources and results published by government will also give a fair idea of what we must expect from government, given all those resources that they gain from the miners.
So who should take the ultimate blame for the slow pace of development? Is it central government?
Who have we chosen to lead? We elected a government. If we can do it by ourselves, we wouldn't have elected a government. And so the backstop of the government, they are in a position to help us for all that. At least even the district assembly, the localized one, is administered by the central government. So governments have to, answer to some of these things.
Right, so we are looking at sustainable mining and, of course, responsible mining. And we are looking at the pros and cons and how best we can make it better, especially as mining has become a major tool for the 2024 December 7th presidential and parliamentary elections. My guest this afternoon, Dr. Charles Gyamfi-Ofori, Policy Lead, Climate Change and Energy Transition with A7, of course, Nana Amoesi from the Energy Security Institute for Energy Security. Now, is there a connection between climate change and what we are experiencing now? And to what extent will that have effect on our lives going forward if the status quo does not change?
When you assess climate vulnerability, countries that are largely vulnerable to the impacts of climate change, you realize that African countries, and Ghana is one of those vulnerable countries. And it's also because of our key agrarian economy, because the impacts of climate change has a lot of impact on our agriculture, produce. Talk about fish stock, talk about farm produce and all of that. Now, there is the bigger concern, the macro level concern about the climate and its changing weather patterns and how it impacts on agriculture. But there's also now the direct impact of the activities that we are having, like the galamsey we are talking about, and how it affects, you know, our agriculture and some of the livelihoods that, you know, we are supposed to have, and then the cost that we are incurring in purifying water and in doing all the things that we need to. So it is on two ways: the bigger impact of the climate and how it impacts our livelihoods, especially regarding agriculture, and then also the other impacts, how the direct impacts of the unsustainable mining practices have on the farmers. So if you take a typical farmer living in, let's say, a mining community, that farmer faces a double-barreled problem. The problem with climate change, the changing weather patterns, and how it impacts on their produce. And then the second one is the dangers that unsustainable mining would also impact on, you know, the kind of the land that they are using, the production that they are having, the lands that are being taken away from them, and all of those situations that they face.
So, as you boss the two together, I mean, the threat of climate change and how devastating it may have on our lives going forward. And now that we don't appear to have a handle on stopping illegal mining, it was something that would take years for us to handle it, so it will still be ongoing. I have just been thinking, it's an idea that perhaps, I don't know how feasible that can be. Now, for cocoa board, the law is that all cocoa farmers sell their beans to cocoa board. Can't we streamline illegal mining or small-scale mining to the level where perhaps all of them sell their goods to an entity, like happens in the cocoa sector, so that you can track, identify them, monitor them, and watch what they do? Is it not possible?
Well, I'm not sure we are monitoring what cocoa producers are doing. We only resource them to produce more cocoa. Okay, but here is the case. We are mining irresponsibly, whether small-scale or illegal mining. You want to say that all of them should sell their gold to government. The first point we are discussing here is that we must ensure that they are mining responsibly. It's not about how much they are getting today or how much government will get. It is harming our environment if we don't mine responsibly. If you choose to go into a forest reserve and cut those trees, it means that the carbons have no place to go and settle, okay? The absorbents have been taken away. They have to go into the sky, forms a blanket up there. The heat that needs to go back to space, go and hit that carbon, that blanket. And so between us and that blanket in the sky is heat, okay? And it's changing a lot of things. This is global warming. When it warms, it changes our weather patterns. It changes how much the temperature we have been enjoying over the years and many others. If it changes the rainfall pattern, for instance, it means that we cannot predict when it's going to rain and how much is going to rain and how it's going to support the growth of our crops. It brings, you know, when there's no much harvesting of our food, it brings hunger. And that can even generate into other tensions politically. When people are starving, you know what it brings. And so the first thing is, look, let's ensure that we are mining responsibly, and let's ensure that we are mining in a way that does not impact negatively on our climate, so that we don't end up bearing the brunt of climate change. Food security is strengthened.
Right.
Human settlement is strengthened. Rainfall pattern is threatened.
But lives are threatened.
Lives are threatened all over the place. So today, I want us to be so much fixated on how to mine responsibly and protect our forests, protect our water bodies as people. And Doc said, what happened? If you get all the money, can your money buy water when water is non-existent? I think we are getting to a point where every Ghanaian must be concerned what's happening in the space and ensure that whether NDC or MPP, we put government on the toe such that they ensure that regulations are followed to the hilt. Every law and every act has been made already. everything that we need to protect our forests by way of law and act are existing. There's the enforcement.
Because we bring in the NDC, and as we begin to wrap up, you've heard all of them, from Dr. Bawumia to Mahama to Alan Kyerematen, and all those who want to lead this country in 2025. Their diagnosis and solution, are these the ones that we need to bring sanity to the sector?
Well, for the NDC's manifesto, it gives me some hope that the act that was signed by Parliament a while ago, that we can mine in forest reserve, they will make sure that they reverse it. It gives me much hope.
In fact, the process has already started. I mean, maybe, but for the standoff in Parliament.
If the MPP is able to get this off Parliament with the support of NDC members in Parliament, I hope to give them some consideration.
Dr. Ofori.
I think that Nana mentioned a very important issue about the fact that these are not new laws. These are issues that have been written and has been backed by law and has been approved by Parliament and codified into law. And some of the things that we see are just, the rehashing of what the law actually, entails. Just that they are giving new names, right? So if you say Restore Ghana Initiative and all of that, there are reclamation processes that the law should actually have, right? So it is really an issue of regulation and enforcement, that irrespective of what government is in power, ensuring that once we make sure that whether large scale or small scale or community level mining is able to now follow the dictates of what we have outlined in the law and all the attendant regulations, we should be able to, mitigate these harmful effects of illegal mining.
Right. We'll pick up this conversation after the elections to see how best we can make this work. By that time, of course, we will know who will be the president of this country, and then we'll put their plan to bring sanity to this sector to better scrutiny and demand timelines for, to achieving what they've said that they will do in this sector. Dr. Charles Gyamfi Ofori, Policy Lead Climate Change and Energy Transition. Thank you so much for coming through, Doctor. And of course, our very own Nana Amoesi, Executive Director of the Institute for Energy Security. Nana, thank you so much for coming through. We'll take a short break right here on the pause and return with more on the show.